Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. While tidying up the house, I stumbled upon a winning lottery ticket from decades ago. My husband's. That year, I had lost my job and our son was gravely ill. I endured unimaginable hardship to scrape together money for his treatment. Yet in his diary I found an entry. 30,000 winnings, all for my darling Rose. But I am not Rose. Rose was the belle of his factory workshop. John, I challenged him. Look at this. What is this? I flung the lottery stub and the diary at his face, so agitated my features twisted in a furious demand for an explanation. 30,000. Back then, 30,000 could have completely changed our family's life, and yet he gave it all away to someone else without a word. Seeing those items, a flicker of panic crossed John's face, but not from fear of being discovered by me. Rather from the fear that I might damage those items. He hastily picked them up, examining them closely as if they were treasures. What are you doing rummaging through my things? It's all in the past now. We're living peacefully. Why bring it up? Bring it up? Is that what you call it? Bringing it up? That year our son was gravely ill. Both of us were jobless. If only he had kept just 10,000, just enough to treat our son. I wouldn't have uttered a single complaint, but he gave it all to Rose, watching me suffer, watching my child in agony. Later my son nearly didn't make it. Several times I begged him to find Rose, reminding him of the help our family had once extended to her, lending her some money. But what did John say? Rose is struggling too. How can I borrow money from a woman? Even if I did, she wouldn't have any to lend. Perhaps this is our fate. Nonsense. If John had brought that money home, my son wouldn't have suffered delayed treatment and become intellectually disabled. Clearly, someone else deserved to die more. John, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Even if she gets married 8 times, it wouldn't be your turn. I wanted to go and ask her how she could be so shameless, living a comfortable life for half her life with my family's money. Wasn't she afraid of going to hell, having King Yama check the book of life, condemning her to be reborn as a dog or pig in the next life? When I was young, I loved John with all my heart. With my honest wages, if he hadn't brought the winnings home, just a few words of explanation, and I would have believed the lottery money came from my wages. But he never once considered bringing the winnings home. Rose had seen my son in and out of the hospital countless times and then become intellectually disabled, yet she could still calmly enjoy those 30,000. Why? Every time she visited, she would bring some fruit and supplements, making me feel grateful and think she was a good person. I was the fool. I was the biggest joke. Don't go. You're making me lose face. Stop right there. I willingly gave it to Rose. You just have to make a scene, ruin people's lives to be satisfied, right? How could I listen to that? I lifted my foot to step outside. John, this man who was too lazy to even. I didn't lift a finger at home this time. I ran quickly to block my path, pushing me forcefully. The next moment, the back of my head slammed onto the floor, and my mind went blank. I only managed to see my intellectually disabled son push him away and rush to my side, weeping. Mom, wasn't it just borrowing a little money from Rose? Why are you crying? I looked up abruptly. Before me stood John, who was decades younger, the enamel mug, the dormitory building, even these familiar clothes. I had gone back to when it all started. Goldie, we are all factory workers. We have our guaranteed jobs. Rose's husband is useless, can't do anything. She's struggling to raise her child alone. Can you spare some money to help her out? I remembered now, in my past life at this time, Rose's husband had squandered all their money on frivolous things. She had a tearful outburst in the workshop, and then John came home and told me to lend her some money. Foolishly, I believed Rose's tears, believed John's feigned kindness. Then I gave the money, and my family of 3 lived in poverty for years. Even until my death, I never got a penny back. John was still droning on and on. I raised my hand and slapped him squarely across the face with satisfying force. Before he could react, I slapped him again, then scratched at his face fiercely. Shameless, filthy. I must report him. I must divorce him, you viper. Whoever marries you is cursed for 8 lifetimes. Rose wants money, does she? I'll see if there's any reason to beg for money from another woman's man. The soundproofing in our home wasn't good, and the startled wasn't mine but John's. He tried to retaliate but hurriedly covered my mouth. Stop talking nonsense. You'll ruin her reputation. Keep your voice down. Living half my life. Didn't I know men's weaknesses? I kicked him squarely in the groin. I punched him hard, slapped him repeatedly relentlessly. John's face contorted in pain, but he still didn't dare let go. I immediately bit down hard, wishing I could tear off a chunk of flesh. John, divorce. I must divorce you. John clutched his lower body, writhing on the ground in agony, his eyes wide with disbelief. Goldie, you want to divorce me just for this little thing? If I had known, I wouldn't have married someone as narrow-minded as you. I laughed coldly. This cheap trick was even worse than those ruthless capitalists. With this kind of person, reasoning was useless. Only violence worked. Beat him until he didn't dare open his mouth again. I said nothing, just grabbed the broom and whacked him hard. We're not divorced yet. Me hitting him is just a marital matter, a family matter. Once divorced, there won't be such a good opportunity anymore. Of course, I wasn't any stronger than John, but as soon as he tried to fight back, I would shout even louder, cursing him for being shameless, lusting after another man's wife even when married, and scolding Rose for begging for money from another woman's man when she had a husband. As long as he didn't fight back, I would just silently keep hitting. John also realized this. It made sense. He was genuinely devoted to Rose and afraid I would damage her reputation. He endured being beaten with a broom for half an hour until I was exhausted before he dared to open his mouth. Goldie, Goldie, you've hit me enough. Please stop. I've hit you enough. Now it's time to talk divorce. Our son belongs to me. This house was allocated to me by the factory. You move out. Furthermore, you must pay child support. Hearing this, John immediately sprang up from the ground. Goldie, you not only want a divorce, but you also want me to leave empty-handed? I didn't know you were this greedy before. I don't agree. Don't dream of divorcing me right now. Rose's husband hasn't died yet, John hasn't won the lottery, and most importantly, my son isn't sick yet. I must divorce. John must make money. I can't let my son and I suffer like in my previous life. Thinking back, every month after John received his salary, he would say he was helping a colleague with this, lending money to a friend with that, or claiming he lost money. In short, his salary rarely came home. Thinking of this, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face again. Whether I'm greedy or not is none of your business. You don't have a penny living off my salary, you leeching man, you money-grubbing man. You don't agree to a divorce? Fine, then we'll go to the factory and make it clear. Let's see if your wages are given to Lee or to that vixen. I want to ask, is there any reason in this world for a wife to support her husband while the husband uses the money to support another woman? This era isn't like later times. Everyone in the factory knows how much everyone earns. Moreover, the whole dormitory area lives together as neighbors. Who doesn't know our family situation? As long as I make a big deal out of it, a little investigation and everything will be exposed. By then, even if John wants to deny it, it would be difficult. Those who cheat, whether men or women, will be despised. If this news gets out, don't even think about performance reviews and commendations. Even those waiting for promotions in the factory will hate them. I knew the massive layoffs were coming soon, but John didn't. Hearing me say this, he immediately deflated like a punctured balloon. Goldie, Rose and I really have nothing going on. Even if you want a divorce, you have to think about Tiny. Does he really want us to divorce? I paused. Before he got sick, Tiny was very attached to John. After becoming intellectually disabled, he understood even less. I could decisively end this marriage, but what about Tiny? Could he really accept it? Seeing me hesitate, John continued. Goldie, I won't see Rose again in the future. I will be good to you and our son. Give me one more chance, please. Mom, if you divorce Dad, I will go with you. I was startled. I didn't know when Tiny had stood at the door. He ran quickly to grab my clothes, repeating, I want to live with Mom. Mom, divorce Dad. John's face turned ashen. Without any hesitation, he raised his hand and slapped Tiny hard across the face. One side of the boy's face instantly swelled up, but his eyes remained resolute. Stared down by his son, John faltered, his voice rising. You little brat, you dare instigate your mother to divorce me? I'll beat you to death right now. A dog can never quit eating. I immediately pushed Tiny behind me. raised the broom and whacked John squarely in the face. "You dare hit my son? Then tomorrow I will go to the factory and beat that woman. John, if you dare touch a hair on Tiny's head, I will let everyone know your true colors. You are being unreasonable." I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. We'd been husband and wife for so many years. I knew he was about to run away. "John, you dare step out of this door, I'll go straight to Annie Chatty's house. I guarantee by tomorrow morning the whole dormitory area will know about your dirty deeds." Annie Chatty is famously gossipy. Anything that falls into her ears is as good as broadcast on the radio. Sure enough, after I pulled Tiny into the room, John stood rooted to the spot, not daring to leave. "Tomorrow we will go through divorce procedures. Do exactly as I say, John. I've given you face by not demanding back the money you two have spent. If you don't agree, I will make things even uglier." It wasn't that I didn't want to get back the money Rose had spent, but now I just wanted a divorce as soon as possible. I couldn't drag this on any longer. I still had to win the lottery, Tiny's illness, the upcoming layoffs. These things were always weighing on my heart. John lowered his head, not understanding how just lending money to Rose led to this divorce, but I gave him no room for a retreat, and in the end, he could only nod in agreement. That night, I forced him to pack up his dowry and betrothal gifts, considering them as compensation. We split the things bought later in half. The next day we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. At this time, divorce procedures were still simple. Both parties were willing, assets clearly divided, and we quickly received our divorce certificates. "Move your things into the factory dormitory today. Remember to make it clear to Rose that if she dares to cause trouble for me again, I will expose everything." John wanted to say something, but I turned and ran, heading straight to the lottery stall. Seeing that lottery ticket still in the stall, I immediately took out almost my entire month's salary and slammed it on the counter. "Boss, I just got divorced today. I'm buying all the lottery tickets." The boss and the surrounding people stared at me wide-eyed. Everyone turned to stare at me. I didn't care about people's gazes. I swept up all the lottery tickets on the counter. "I just got divorced. Assets are clearly divided, boss. No need to worry about my family causing trouble. Today I'm happy buying everything." Now, there were no surveillance cameras back then. I was doing this to let everyone witness so they could be my witnesses later. By the time I returned to the factory, it was afternoon. The morning I had asked Andy Chatty to request leave for me without hiding the divorce. Seeing me, quite a few people greeted me. Most were just curious, but no one directly asked. "Goldie heard you divorced." Comrade John Rose gently opened her mouth, but every word tried to push the blame for the divorce onto me. I hadn't even settled scores with her yet, and she dared to show her face. First, I rolled up my sleeves, ready to spit right in her face, but was pulled back by a female worker. "Rose, what do you mean can't live without a man? You're too negative. Don't you know women can hold up half the sky?" "That's right, Goldie is always diligent and upright. What problem does she have?" "I think the problem is John. How much do you know about other people's marital affairs? Don't arbitrarily blame people. You're being too harsh." Seeing these colleagues stand up for me, for a moment my eyes turned red. In my past life, when the layoffs came, the whole factory lost their jobs. I was only concerned about how to earn enough money for my son's medicine, how to ensure Tiny had enough nutrition. I had no energy to care about the colleagues around me, but now they were standing on my side. It felt like I truly had a chance to start my life anew. Rose's face paled, her feet retreating. She looked as if we were all bullying her. "I just wanted to advise you to live well. See this pretense? I'm so familiar with it. It's been the same for decades, nothing new." I immediately stepped forward, staring intently at Rose. "You want to know why John and I divorced? Right, fine, I'll tell you. Rose is to blame." John, panting, rushed over, interrupting me. He didn't dare look at me, hung his head, explaining, "It's just that Goldie and I are incompatible, that's all." So this is what he called having nothing going on with Rose. I laughed coldly, not bothering to argue further, but Rose trembled, tears welling up, grabbing John's arm. "Comrade John, why do you have to defend this petty woman? Just because you're a good person wanting to do good deeds, and she's so stingy with money that she demands a divorce?" Chairman Mao said we must have the spirit of dedication. We must do good deeds. I didn't even look at John anymore, stepped forward, and slapped Rose hard across the stomach. This time she truly cried. John wants to be a good person, so he gives all his salary to you, while all household expenses are paid with my money. So tell me, what kind of good person cares for another man's wife like this? The entire factory erupted in an uproar. All eyes turned to John, eyes filled with complex emotions. Rose still wanted to argue, but I charged forward, not giving her a chance to continue. Rose, my salary has to support 3 people. You get to spend freely on John's salary. Look at the good fabric clothes you're wearing. Look at the face cream you use, all are bought with his money, right? Does your husband know you spend another man's money every month? I haven't even said anything yet, and you dare come looking for trouble with me? Do you think I'm easy to bully because of the fight? Rose, John, and I were called to the office for fighting during work hours. What kind of decorum is this? Rose's face was scratched by me. She looked utterly pitiful. But in my eyes, this fainted, pitiful look was just laughable. I lowered my head, admitting it had affected work but absolutely not admitting fault for hitting Rose. Hearing colleagues recount the whole story, the director also found it difficult to scold me harshly. Everyone here are state-owned enterprise workers. How many people envy your positions? The commendation selection period is coming up. What do you expect me to do? The director slammed the table, and the water in the thermos splashed onto the table. Rose sobbed, choked with tears. Director, I've been beaten to this extent. How can I face anyone anymore? Goldie must apologize to me and compensate me for medical expenses. I burst out laughing. Rose, you do such morally corrupt things and still have the face to demand medical expenses? The director slammed the table even harder. Both of you have disgraced the factory. One is hot-headed and acts without thinking, and the 2 of you have ruined the atmosphere here. This must be dealt with. Finally, he made a decision. Goldie, deduct half a month's salary. Jan and Rose, each deduct 2 months' salary. Based on what? Both of them protested in unison, one panicked, one furious. Based on what? Based on your affairs affecting the entire factory. If this matter spreads outside, everyone will be implicated. The director's voice was firm. No one could change this decision. But I no longer had the mood to care about these things. No one expected this thriving factory would be merged just a month later with mass layoffs. I was also one of those who would be laid off. Most importantly, in just 2 weeks, Tiny's illness would begin to flare up. Director, I've come here today to submit my resignation. Then I'll go redeem the lottery ticket and take Tiny to the hospital. In my past life, the doctor had said Tiny's illness could be completely cured, but the medical conditions here were too poor. Back then, I couldn't even afford the hospital fees in the local hospital, let alone dream of curing my son's illness. Now there was a chance. I must make my son live a healthy life. I couldn't keep asking for leave, so resigning was the best choice. Director, if they don't agree, then just lay off all 3 of us. I will fully cooperate. Even if I resign, I must expose the true faces of these 2 vile people. Rose and Jay's eyes were filled with panic. They thought I had gone mad. Even the director didn't agree with me. Goldie, don't say such impulsive words. You still have to raise Tiny. It's not easy for a single mother. Isn't John still going to pay child support? How about this? The factory will deduct it directly from his salary and transfer it to you. I shook my head hatefully, looking at those 2. Director, I can no longer work with this adulterous couple. I've come here today to submit my resignation. At the factory dormitory, I will also move out soon. Please give the factory a few days for me to arrange my departure. Seeing my determination, the director didn't persuade me further. You take this month's salary. After a moment's thought, the director continued. This month's child support for Tiny will also be deducted directly from John's salary and transferred to you. But Goldie, John and Rose will still continue to work here. It's not easy for anyone. I nodded, not insisting on firing them anymore. If they were truly fired, John's parents would definitely come to snatch Tiny away, and my parents would advise me to get back together with him. But Tiny couldn't be delayed any longer. After this incident, those 2 wouldn't have an easy life in the factory either. Moreover, I had nothing left to lose while they still needed to keep this job, so they wouldn't dare to cause trouble for me again. Tiny, don't be afraid. Mom will always be by your side. I held my son's hand tightly. Even I myself was trembling. Going to the hospital now wasn't easy. Wanting to go to another province for treatment required a referral letter and many procedures. Now Tiny hadn't fallen ill yet. If the examination didn't find anything, our time would be further delayed. I worried about everything, but Tiny's small hand still held mine tightly. Mom, I'm not afraid. Without Dad, no one will hurt Mom and me anymore. I was stunned. I lowered my head to look at Tiny. The boy smiled brightly. I dreamed that Dad pushed Mom down. Mom bled a lot. Dad is bad. I don't need Dad anymore. I only need Mom. Did Tiny also reincarnate? Perhaps for Tiny the past life was just a dream, a long nightmare. I nodded hard. Yes, just a dream. We don't need him anymore. To be sure, I still chose to make an appointment with the doctor for my past life. After the examination, the doctor solemnly sat down opposite me. Luckily, you came early. The child hasn't fallen ill yet, but there's bad news. This hospital is not equipped to treat it. You have to take the child to Beijing. Beijing, that was expensive. Treatment, travel expenses, living expenses. Many people in their entire lives had never stepped out of the province, let alone thought of taking their child to Beijing for treatment. The doctor sighed, but I felt both of my lives were worth it. As long as there was hope, as long as Tiny could recover. Doctor, we will go to Beijing for treatment. Please help me prepare the referral letter. Thank you very much. The doctor stared at me in astonishment but quickly nodded in agreement and gave many instructions about the hospital, things to prepare, and how to save every penny. Leaving the hospital, Tiny and I walked and cried. Soon, the whole dormitory area knew about me taking my son to Beijing for treatment. Some brought eggs for me, some slipped a little cash into my hand. I thanked each and everyone, then returned home and took all the lottery tickets to the redemption center. It wasn't just 30,000. I had won quite a bit more money. The news of me winning the lottery spread throughout the neighborhood in the blink of an eye. Having tens of thousands now was enough to make people's eyes turn red. I carefully kept the money with me, bought train tickets, and left that very night. I packed up my things and left immediately, avoiding any trouble. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking on the door. I opened it, and John's face appeared. He moved his lips but couldn't utter a word. Just as I was about to close the door, a foot blocked the doorway. Sister Goldie, I heard you won tens of thousands in the lottery. Congratulations. Rose suddenly became ingratiating, smiling as she pushed the door open without a trace of previous animosity. Sister Goldie, you can't be so unreasonable. Even if you're divorced, you should give half to Comrade John, right? Seeing her sparkling eyes, I knew exactly what she was planning. Falling into John's hands was no different from falling into Rose's hands. I stood in the doorway, blocking these shameless people. John, is that money yours? The whole neighborhood knows Tiny is seriously ill. Yet you, as a father, didn't bother to ask a single question. Only when you see money do you jump in to demand a share. Are you even human? John didn't dare look at me, lowering his head and muttering, treatment doesn't need that much money. Goldie, those are lottery tickets we bought before the divorce. The winnings should be split half and half. I was so angry I almost fainted. John's face is truly thicker than a city wall. Sister, listen to my younger sister's words. A day's husband and wife, 100 days of kindness. You won so much money, you can't spend it all alone. Share half with your ex-husband. Even if you can't be husband and wife, you can still be friends. Rose's husband also squeezed in. It seemed money was more important than the horns on his head. Sister Goldie, you have so much money now. Lend me some, or you can split half to Comrade John, and he can lend it to me. Saying this, the three of them pushed each other, trying to force their way in. I stood blocking the door, not letting them in. Hearing the commotion, Tiny ran out to help me. Seeing the neighbors around peeking their heads out, I immediately winked at my son. Tiny understood instantly, sat down on the ground, and started to wail loudly. Wailing heart-wrenchingly, wailing pitifully. You bad people. You all are bad people. You want to snatch my mom's money. Dad, I don't want to die. Please don't snatch my life-saving money. I don't want to die. Boo-hoo. In less than a minute, the entire dormitory area rushed out to watch. The three of them panicked, pushing me. I took the opportunity to fall down, hugging Tiny, crying and trembling. Now, who wouldn't be outraged by the scene? John, what are you doing bringing your mistress to your ex-wife's house to bully a mother and son? Are you even human? I see your eyes light up when you see money, right? Your ex-wife isn't even cold in her grave, and you're already messing around with another woman. The three of you have become a family. What do you need to? Report them. Report this adulterous couple. There must still be justice in this world, Goldie. Tiny, don't be afraid. The whole neighborhood is on your side. No one can snatch your money. Seeing everyone rush out, the three of them immediately changed their tune, starting to try to reason, talking back and forth. They still wanted to split the money, but they didn't know that the day I bought the lottery tickets, I had deliberately revealed the divorce certificate. Assets were clearly divided. The lottery ticket money was my own. The lottery stall owner also remembered clearly that I bought the tickets after the divorce. Everyone in the market knew about it. Don't even talk about splitting it in half. John didn't even have a chance to touch a penny. I wiped away my tears, staring coldly at John. I thought you were only at fault towards me. Unexpectedly, for money, you don't even care about Tiny's life. John, you are not human. I lunged forward, punching and kicking him wildly. This time I wasn't acting. I had carried Tiny for nearly 10 months, given birth to him, worried about him my whole life. Even in my previous life, the moment he pushed me down, I was still thinking, if I die, what will happen to Tiny? But what about John? Clearly having money but unwilling to spend it to save his own son? For what? Thinking of Tiny being ridiculed by his friends in my past life, being abandoned by the whole world, I was so angry I couldn't control myself. I lashed out even harder. The people around were gnashing their teeth in anger. Any moment John dared to fight back, he would definitely be swarmed and beaten up by the whole neighborhood. Spending $30,000 on treatment, will it even cure him? Might as well have another child, much better, Rose mumbled, then tried to run away. But I heard everything. My whole body trembled with rage. I immediately let go of John, rushed over and grabbed Rose's neck tightly, making her eyes roll back. You vile woman! You want John's thing, then take it. But you are not allowed to touch my son's life-saving money. Whoever dares to stop my son from getting treatment, whoever dares to take his life-saving money, I will kill them. This foul mouth, if you don't know how to speak, you better shut up forever. The people around rushed forward to pull me away. I also released Rose. Her husband helped her up and she ran away in terror. As for John, someone took advantage of the chaos to kick him. At this point, he could only drag himself home in a miserable state. After saying goodbye to the neighbors, I led Tiny on our journey. The boy leaned against me. Every time I looked at him, he would give me a smile. He was so understanding it made my heart ache. After several days on the train, finally, mother and son arrived in Beijing. Only when Tiny was admitted to the hospital did I breathe a sigh of relief. After the examination results came out, the doctor announced surgery was possible. A cure was possible. I was so happy I burst into tears on the spot. Tiny, be good here, okay? Mom has to go out to earn money. Hey, don't run around after instructing him. I gave some money to a patient's family in the next bed to help watch over him, then left on the train. I heard that private enterprises had started in big cities, especially in Beijing. Living a second life, I didn't have any special abilities, only an advantage in information. My goal was the largest clothing wholesale market in Beijing. I had witnessed the changes in fashion, clothing styles, and designs over the years. This was the only thing I could leverage. Moreover, now transportation was difficult. Fashionable clothes from Beijing brought back to my hometown wouldn't be outdated. But when I actually started, things were not as easy as in novels. I drew a series of designs, ran around countless times, and finally got a chance to try them out. When the clothes started selling well, I signed a formal contract. During Tiny's hospitalization, I drew designs day and night. Once I established connections, I expanded to other items like handbags and hair accessories. I needed money. I had to earn money as fast as possible. Fortunately, Tiny was young, detected early, and treated promptly. After more than a month in the hospital, the boy was able to be discharged. After deducting all treatment expenses, I still earned a considerable sum of money. But a woman carrying bags and luggage was too easily targeted. I decisively spent money to hire a transportation company to find a reliable driver to handle long-term delivery back to my hometown. Back in my hometown, the factory had been merged, and the dormitory area was also reclaimed. I took Tiny to buy a house immediately in the area that would become the city center in the future. It was still cheap now. I didn't pay in full cash but chose to take out a loan to buy the house. I even bought an extra shop. The news of my return quickly spread throughout the old neighborhood. My former colleagues also came to visit. Even though they had been laid off, they still brought the best things they had to visit Tiny. "Auntie Chatty, have you found a job yet?" Seeing those familiar faces, my heart warmed. Selling clothes alone was not easy. These old colleagues had worked together for so many years. I knew their abilities and personalities well. If I could hire them, I would be more at ease and could repay the kindness they had shown me. Auntie Chatty sighed, shaking her head. "Easy to find a job? Goldie, you don't know. It's very difficult now." I took Auntie Chatty's hand, unable to hide my excitement. "Auntie Chatty, come work for me and your daughter-in-law too. I will pay you the salary." I held out my hand, showing a number that made Auntie Chatty's eyes widen. Knowing she would hesitate, I immediately continued. "Auntie Chatty, I just rented a shop. In a few days the clothes will be shipped back. I'm not paying you for nothing. You just need to take your daughter-in-law for a walk wearing clothes from my shop. If anyone asks, introduce them. I believe in your gift of gab. No matter how beautiful clothes are, they still need promotion. And Auntie Chatty, you just need to let people know these are imported from Beijing, and you'll definitely advertise them to the skies." In just a few days, my small unknown shop started to become famous. After the shop expanded, I decided to also order men's and children's fashion designs on the condition that they had to let me hang a sign to open a branch and provide goods in bulk. Soon others would definitely open shops. What I needed to do now was to leverage the reputation of Beijing to promote the first shop, establishing a firm foothold in the market. As the shop expanded, I hired more former colleagues, from accountants to models to security guards. Everyone had a place. Goldie Fashion officially established its name in the city. I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. My son just needed to live happily and healthily. That was enough. But the more famous you are, the fatter the pig, the more likely you are to be slaughtered. John's parents, hearing I was making money, immediately brought their beloved son and came knocking. "Goldie, we didn't know anything about you two divorcing. In our eyes, you will always be our daughter-in-law, and Tiny will always be our grandson. As long as they turn back, it's all good. What do you say?" Mother John said while touching and stroking the clothes, her eyes filled with greed. "I have already taught John a lesson. You two just go re-register your marriage and live together again." The whole family reunited. How wonderful. Daydreaming in broad daylight. Father John saw my cold face, coughed twice lightly, then said, "Goldie, even if you don't want to live with John anymore, Tiny still needs a father. How about you arrange a job for our family so John can be by his son's side? What do you think?" I raised my eyebrows. Oh, I thought they believed I would open the door and agree to open the window too. What kind of job do you want? As soon as they heard me ask, Mother John immediately perked up. Even John raised his head. "Mom and Dad want to enjoy the same benefits as Auntie Chatty, with salary and insurance, and John will be the manager of your shop. Think about it, such a big shop, are you at ease trusting it to outsiders? After all, he is Tiny's father. Isn't helping you manage the shop also helping your son?" I burst out laughing. Truly, there were times when people were so shameless that you could only laugh in anger. Auntie Chatty had followed me from the beginning and had the gift of gab. Selling was her forte. What did John's parents have? John as manager? How thick-skinned could they be? Sweeping and cleaning. Maybe you can do manager? No way. If you do it, do it. If not, get lost. John glared at me. "Goldie, they're my parents. You took 30,000 from me. I haven't even settled scores with you yet. Now you helping them a little shouldn't be a matter of course. Moreover, Tiny isn't intellectually disabled anymore. What are you still nitpicking about?" Very good, very good. He even dared to demand money facing me. When I was young, I wanted to slap him. Now see, I wanted to beat him even more with the dragon subduing palm technique. The distance between him and me wasn't just feelings but a whole life. "John, are you crazy? You still dare curse my son to be intellectually disabled? How can there be such a two-timing scumbag? Already dumped, but still no one wants him in my shop." Everyone knew clearly about what happened that year. Everyone revealed strange looks, staring at JN. The 30,000 from beginning to end, he had never touched it. How did it become his now? Tiny was clearly healthy and normal. How could he say the boy was once intellectually disabled? Spouting nonsense. If he wasn't crazy, what was he arguing? Without gaining an advantage, fighting without enough numbers, John's family had to leave in dismay. But I wasn't stupid. The shop had been open for so long. If John's family wanted to demand money, why wait until now? I investigated again and indeed found clues. Rose's husband, like in my past life, had died in an accident. But in this life, JN was divorced, and the two of them had secretly been seeing each other. It was said Rose had just returned from a hospital visit immediately after she brought John to meet his parents. Then there was today's scene of causing trouble at the shop. Others might not be clear, but how could I not guess? 1. Their whole family intended to squeeze money out of me. 2. Rose was pregnant, wanting to be like in my past life, letting me be the beast of burden to raise their child for them. If this time failed, they would definitely come back again. All right, you two are in love for 2 lifetimes. I will help you two be bound together forever. Oh my, isn't this the ex-husband who just asked me to remarry the other day? How fast? Already found a new home. 1 divorced, 1 widowed. Truly a match made in heaven. Congratulations. I clapped my hands in applause, making John's face stiffen. Once this relationship was finalized, the marriage certificate just signed, what face would he have to ask me to remarry? Still dreaming of my money? Forget it. In my past life, the one who suffered was me. The one who hurt was Tiny. In this life, the one who suffers must be him. He not only had to raise Rose but also raised 2 children. In fact, the most heartless and shameless person understood everything the clearest. No, Goldie, you have to believe me. It was Rose who took the initiative. I was just momentarily confused. The one I love the most is still you. I am your husband. I am Tiny's father. Don't go. But how could Rose let him run? Her husband had died, and now she was caught seeing John. If he ran, she would have nothing left. She hugged her belly, tears streaming down her face, voice weak. John, in my belly is your child. You promised to love me forever. You said you love me the most. Don't abandon me. But John, losing face in front of so many people, was so angry he forcefully pushed her away, causing her to fall to the ground. My belly. My belly. It hurts. My child. Rose was taken to the hospital, but the baby couldn't be saved. Her parents only offered 2 choices. 1. John registers for marriage, taking care of mother and child for the rest of his life. 2. He is taken straight to the police station. So they still ended up together. No wedding, no candy, not even a meal, but I was satisfied. Tiny was healthy, I made money, my kind old colleagues also had stable jobs, and John and Rose finally became a couple. Wasn't it a perfect ending? My business was booming. For Tiny's future, I enrolled him in the best school. Every year a full health checkup. Nothing was lacking. As for that piece of trash, was his love even worth money? Tiny was very smart with excellent grades. Step by step, he entered the most prestigious schools, and finally I could see my son happily enter into marriage with the person he loved. This was something I would have dared to dream of in my past life. On the wedding day, as the motorcade was about to start, suddenly a person rushed into the road. That person ran straight towards the car, but before they could get close, they tripped and fell, hitting their head on a roadside stone, blood flowing profusely. Don't worry. That old man is a professional scammer. I don't know how many people he has scammed, but this time it doesn't look like a fake fall. At this time, an old woman rushed out from the side of the road, wailing and demanding money, saying her husband was hit by our car. But I didn't care. I calmly called the police. There was a dash cam, there were witnesses. This matter had nothing to do with us. The injured person wasn't taken away by the police but by an ambulance. Truly, a head injury from the fall. As the car started, I glanced at the man lying in a pool of blood. Clearly it was John. Mom, what are you looking at? Tiny turned to ask me. I reached out to straighten his collar and smiled. Nothing, Mom, was just thinking you and your daughter-in-law must live happily. As for John, he should never have appeared in your life.